This video is going to go over how to graph polynomials from an equation. We'll get to that, but there's some background information that if you don't know, you're not going to be very successful at this. Basically, every polynomial has a degree. And when I say that, I'm referring to the sum of these little numbers, the sum of the exponents. So if there's not one there, it's a 1. So like this would have degree 3. That would be odd. And it would determine how my arrows look. There's also going to be a number out in front here. If there's not one there, it's like a 1. That determines if it's positive or negative. So like this one would be a positive odd function. So my arrows, my in direction of these arrows would have to match this. The one on the left would have to be going down. The one on the right would have to be going up. So like something like this. So just keep that in mind. You have to know that. Otherwise, you're not going to be very good at this. Another thing you need to know is the degree of each of these factors makes an impact in terms of the line. So if there's no number there, it's a 1, and it cuts straight through. If there's a 2 there, it's a bounce, so it has to bounce off the x-axis. If there's a 3 there, it's called a concavity change, and it looks something like this. It's like almost like it matches almost like a cubic type thing. And then the last thing, background information before we get started, would be your y-intercept on these is going to be very, very important. And so to get it, you plug in 0 for your x values, and then you solve. I don't know why there's an e missing there. So like this one, if I plugged in 0 for x, it would look like this. Then I could just do a little bit of math and get my y-intercept. That's going to be very, very important for you to be able to do. All right, let's go ahead and look at some examples. This first one, the first thing that's going through my mind when I look at it is what's the degree? This x right here, this x is like it says x plus 0, basically. It has a degree of 1. So there's a 1 there. Then this next one, the x plus 4, has degree 1. So if I add up all of these, I get degree of 4. Degree 4. And it is a negative 2 out in front. So this right here would be a negative even function. So if you remember what I was talking about here, negative even function, my arrows are both going to be going down. So like when I do these, I'm going to go ahead and put arrows down like this. That's where my line is going to have to end up. It's going to have to look like that. All right, the next thing that I would probably do is I would identify my y-intercept. My y-intercept, if I plugged in 0 here, would be 0, because this 0 right here will multiply everything and make it all 0. So I know this has to go through the origin. There's another piece of information that helped. And then my last thing that I would think about would be where each 0, where each x-intercept is. So basically, let me kind of clean this up a little bit. All right, basically just take these factors and set them equal to 0 and solve. So like this one would be x minus 1 equals 0 and solve it. There's an x-intercept at 1 right there. So using that information, find all of these x-intercepts. Sorry about that. Okay, so using this information, I know I'm going to have an x-intercept at 0, an x-intercept at negative 4, and an x-intercept at 1. So 0, negative 4 here, and 1. It doesn't have to be perfect. All right, now at each of those, you need to mark what's going to happen. So if you remember this, you're either going to cut straight through, you're going to have a bounce, or you're going to have a concavity change. So in this first one, at 0, the exponent is a 1. That means it's going to be a straight through. At -4, the exponent is a 1. That means it's going to be a straight through. And I might even mark these on my graph here. And then at 1, it's going to be a bounce because the exponent is a 2. So this side is going to bounce right here. All right, now you can go graph this. Basically, just match what you know. I'm going to come up like this, and I'm going to cut straight through -4, like that. Now start working your way back down to the x-axis because you have to cut through 0 as well. Start working your way back up to your next x-intercept at 1, and you have to bounce off of that. Then you can finish your line like that. And in terms of how high or how low you go here, it doesn't really matter. Just make your graph. This graph is not to scale. We're just kind of matching an overall appearance. All right, let's look at the next one. It's degree 3, and it's a positive. So that means my arrows, it's for a positive odd, go down, up. The y-intercept, if I plugged in 0 for these x's, you would get 2 parentheses 1 squared, 0 plus 2 is 2, like this. And if you multiply that out, you would get 4. So I know I have to hit a y-intercept up here at 4. Now you have to find out where these x-intercepts are. Like I said, you need to set each of these factors equal to 0 and then solve it. So this one's kind of tricky. They're trying to trick you there. Just take 1 minus x, set it equal to 0, and solve it. You get 1. So I know I have an x-intercept at 1. And I know I have an x-intercept at -2. At 1, it's got a square, so that means it's got a bounce at 1. And at -2, it's an exponent of 1, so that's just a straight through. All right, now using that information, start with your left arrow, come up, you have to cut straight through -2. You have to go hit your y-intercept. This is why this piece of information is so helpful. Go hit it, go through it. Now when you get to 1, you have to bounce off of that. Bounce, and then go match your arrow at the end, just like that. This last one, the degree is 4, and it's a positive number in front. So that means my arrows are going to go up and up. Okay, now find your y-intercept. Your y-intercept, if you plugged in 0, you would get 0. So it's going to go through the origin here. Find your x-intercepts. This guy is at 0. This one is at -1. Okay, at 0, it's straight through. And at -1, it's a concavity change. This is all the information I need to graph this. So start with your left arrow. You have to concavity change here. So basically you just go down and then do like this little squiggly type thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now you have to work your way back to that next x-intercept at 0, and you're going to cut straight through it. Then go match your arrow at the end. Again, these graphs do not have to be to scale. They don't have to look amazing. You just really want to make sure you get your arrows right, your x-intercepts right, and your y-intercept right. And you should be good to go. Hope this video helped.